We'll bring our select board meeting to order. It's February 11th, 2019, in the Charlotte Town Hall. It's 6:55. The first item on the agenda was the capital budget. You want to just say something about the feedback? We were going to get our CPA's input.
Right. So I did send the draft that we had worked on at the last meeting to Rick Brigham, and he said right now they're pretty straight out and he wouldn't have a chance to look at it for about a month. So I haven't had a chance to do any more work on it, but I just wanted to check with you. He said that it would be a maximum of $1,000. It probably would be less, but that's, you know, if there were a couple of back and forth between the select board and him, that's the possible cost. So I just wanted to check to see that if that's what you were thinking of and if you want me to pursue it with him. It may be considerably less, but that's the maximum.
What do you guys?
I think it's a good idea. I'm sure he's seen more than one town's capital budget and could give us some pointers.
So this is not a time-sensitive issue.
Right.
My suggestion, as we talked last time was on the agenda, maybe update the format a little bit, you know, put it on the other angle,
Yeah.
and then maybe have a copy of the fire and rescue, their capital spreadsheet, and do the first, was it 10 years, and then you're going to do 5, 5, and 5, something like that. Kind of, the more you granulate it, the less that the CPA is going to have to do.
Yeah.
That would be my suggestion.
Yeah.
So we don't need a vote. Everybody's on board. We agreed to do this last time. Okay. Thank you. Hi, Frank. Are there any adjustments to the agenda?
No.
Public comment from anyone? Okay. We're now ahead of schedule.
Could do minutes or.
We'll give Carrie a chance to get here. So we're going to go into Act 143 and discuss it. You're going to give us a little bit of a overview. I'd say, why don't we wait a minute? Carrie's here, and you folks are here for Act 143, I guess, feedback.
So just with regard to the format, Aaron Brown, zoning administrator, is going to provide a brief presentation on the act and on how some of the issues that have been raised. And then I don't know if the select board has questions or comments. You can talk amongst yourself. But if the public has questions, I'm going to ask you to speak into the microphone. It's really for VCAM.
So we're going to get we'll have some discussion, but what's the objective? What happens next? Is it taken on by the planning commission?
Well, the question that was in front of both the select board and the planning commission is whether to regulate, as allowed by the new statute, accessory agricultural uses, which the statute allows regulation only with regard to site plan review and performance standards, but it doesn't require regulation. So I think in the initial discussion, there was, I think, some questions whether we should regulate and some concerns on both sides.
I think I had a concern as to what entity determines whether or not it's an accessory use. I don't know if that necessarily falls under a planning or a zoning, or it says the municipality determines that.
Right. Did we talk last time, Peter, that we'd have maybe a joint discussion, an isolated discussion? I'm trying to remember.
Well, we had,
you did that on.
We had a short discussion maybe a month ago. It was about the schedule in terms of when we would talk about it. That is pretty much what it is.
We'll see what comes out tonight then, what people think.
But I think what Dean has said, I think is accurate in terms of, I think ultimately the question is how the town wants to not want to regulate via, say, site plan, that it would in other commercial businesses. And my understanding, and Aaron can correct me if I'm wrong, is that it leaves it up to municipalities to make that decision.
And what's
We're jumping ahead a little bit, but
performance
we can get into the
performance
presentation.
review? Aaron,
Maybe it's best to go ahead and.
Yeah, go ahead.
what does performance?
Performance review standards deal with things like radioactive materials, noxious gases, smoke, dust. Typically, I'm not too concerned about farms having those issues. We do have them in place. You know, if a farm were operating, say, a brewery on top of it, it might generate a lot of steam. That could be of concern if a neighbor were close by. That's one potential.
Part of it's noise, so.
Yeah, noise is perhaps a more common concern raised under performance standards. So, okay. Anything else before we begin?
No, you're going to kind of explain the purpose of the act.
Right, yes.
Okay, good.
So, Act 143 was a law passed in last year's legislative session. It went into effect July 1st of this past summer, and it relates to municipal land use regulation of accessory on-farm businesses. So I'm going to review the intent of the legislation, how the town's current land use regulations deal with agriculture, some examples of accessory on-farm businesses that I know of in Vermont. They're all outside Charlotte, so we're not endorsing anyone locally. We're not, naming names or anything like that. We're just looking at generally what types of businesses exist on farms, what's clear and unclear about the law, and then potential ways that the town might change the way it looks at accessory on-farm businesses. So the intent of the act, it was twofold. One was to promote and facilitate the economic viability of Vermont's farms. I think this is probably a almost universally accepted goal that a lot of people have in Vermont. The second was to increase the consistency across the state of municipal regulations dealing with accessory activities that support those farms. And I would say that the way the law was written, it's questionable whether it achieves that goal. So Act 143 deals with four things: accessory on-farm businesses, on-farm events, hemp, and then pesticide use notification to employees. We are not going to deal with hemp or pesticides in this presentation. Frankly, those are two areas of the law I've not studied, nor have I had a lot of people coming to me with questions about those. So there's the starting question: what is an accessory on-farm business? And the law defines it as an activity that is accessory to a farm and comprises one or more of the following. So you store, prepare, process, or sell qualifying products, and we'll define that in a little while, provided that more than 50% of the total annual sales are from qualifying products that are principally produced on the farm at which the business is located. Or it could be educational, recreational, or social events that feature those ag products and qualifying practices, including farm stays. So here I've got a menu showing a farm in Panton that does occasional dinners, and I'll get back to...
What's a farm stay? What's that mean, a farm stay?
A farm stay is you spend the night at a farm.
Oh, I see, overnight.
Yeah. So I'll get back to this menu to show you the difficulty in interpreting this law. So what is a farm? That's another thing we've got to consider. The Agency of Ag has long defined this. This is at the very minimum. If you want to be considered a farm, you have to operate 4 or more acres, have $2,000 in annual gross income, or, and this is or, file with the IRS. So if you meet any of those 3 criteria, you are a farm under Vermont law. And that little doggy must be a farmer. So there aren't very good pictures for the term regulation, so we'll deal with books in the background here. Accessory businesses and municipal regulations under the Act. Municipalities are limited to site plan review and performance standards, as we said beforehand. Site plan review, as a lot of you know, This review process deals with things like traffic circulation, parking, pedestrian access, signage, the physical layout of the site. The act prohibits towns from zoning against accessory on-farm businesses. So you can't say no accessory on-farm businesses in the West Charlotte Village. You just can't do that. Again, the law aims for uniformity among towns. However, the Agency of Ag, ever since this law has come out and towns have started to grapple with it, have said that they're going to defer to towns to interpret qualifying products, events, and accessory uses. The agency will continue if someone says, I'm not sure if this is a farm. If a town says that, they can direct the farm to the agency and they'll determine, yes, it meets our minimum threshold or not to be considered a farm. So under Charlotte's regulations, agriculture is exempt from zoning, site plan review, and performance standards. So under the guise of this law, Charlotte currently doesn't have much to do in way of regulating accessory on-farm businesses. So earlier I mentioned that there's a definition of qualifying products. A lot of this is pretty standard. It's anything that's agricultural, horticultural, grown from bees, livestock, cultured fish. But there's one phrase in the definition that really causes some confusion, I think, when trying to interpret this law, and it's a product manufactured on one or more farms from commodities wholly grown or raised on one or more farms. And this is problematic, particularly because elsewhere in the law, as we saw earlier, 50% of the total annual sales have to come from products principally produced on the farm at which the business is located. So we have these kind of two different possible ways of interpreting what qualifying products are under this law. And if I look at this menu here from Agricola Farm in Panton, they had a farm luncheon, and I'll just grab one random item: braised smoked pork cheeks with cipollini and bay leaves, cacio e pepe potatoes. If we're looking at the value as the way of determining whether something meets the standard, what's the zoning administrator to do? Okay, the pork cheeks are worth $8.99 a pound. The cipollini onions, they're a specialty crop, maybe $3.99 a pound. Bay leaves probably aren't grown at the farm. They're probably imported, so they don't count. And the potatoes, they're a lower value product. So what's a qualifying event? The law lists tours. This could just be a tour of the farm. You can have people come over and you show them your fields. Farm stays, these are overnight events. Tastings and meals featuring qualifying products, and classes or exhibits in the preparation, processing, or harvesting of qualifying products. So I'll go through a few examples I know of event-based facilities. Here's Grandview Farm. This seemed like a really clear-cut, this is a no-brainer, this qualifies. This is a workshop on Gotland sheep genetics, specifically looking at how to get the best silver curls out of your lamb and sheep. I don't think there's any question that that's an educational agricultural event. Event farm stays, I found Liberty Hill Farm when I just Google searched farm stay Vermont. This is the Google search that pops up. Here, it actually lists Liberty Hill Farm, 3-star hotel. That's kind of interesting. And then it describes what you can do there. It includes staying at the farm, and has 7 rooms. You get a full breakfast, dinner, and you participate in farm activities. And based on the pictures here, you might be able to gather sap during the maple season. Perhaps you can milk some cows. So you maybe arrive for dinner, have a nice dinner with products raised on the farm. You wake up, you milk the cows, you gather some sap, you go on your way. Yeah. Social events. I used to go to this when I lived on the other side of the state. Fable Farm and Fermentory has basically become an events facility on a farm. And they kind of started out of having these weekly community dinners associated with their CSA pickups. So you'd come get your bag of veggies for the week, and they would have burritos, waiting for you to eat, and you'd socialize with other people from the community. Less clear, they also host theater at Fable Farm. I asked the question to exempt or not to exempt. I actually went to this performance. I frankly don't remember if they served food beforehand, but if you think back to if an event serves a qualifying product, it's considered exempt. So if they served a salad to the crowd before the show started, would it be exempt? Perhaps. That's ultimately, I think, up for the town to interpret. So what's clear and what's unclear about this law? There are a few clear things. You have to meet those minimum standards, so that's your revenue of $2,000 per year or more, your size, 4 acres, or, and that again is or, your tax status. Certain types of events seem very clear to me. For example, Nova, Vermont, they have these farmer training classes that they host at various farms around the state. There's no question that those qualify as things that are exempt. And then a sale of a product produced at the farm, sold at the farm, that's always going to count towards that 50% minimum sales requirement. Less clear. How do products from other Vermont farms count towards the required 50%? I could see reading the law and saying, well, there's that gist about it having to be principally produced at the farm, meaning if I am a tomato farmer but I bring in mozzarella from down the street, maybe that doesn't count towards my 50%. But there's also the line in that 5 qualifying products categories that says, commodities produced at 1 or more farms. Perhaps, the mozzarella does count. How frequently can a farm host tastings and meals? The law does not speak to this. Do events, including farm stays, affect the 50% requirement? It seemed to me when I read this, the events thing is kind of separate, and farm stays are kind of their own thing. But I could see how one could read it otherwise. And what to do about it, if a farm in your neighborhood becomes a concert or wedding venue. If it's serving food and the sales of those food products meet the 50% requirement, is it exempt?
You said something earlier
Yeah.
on that one. So if salad is served as part of the meal, that makes the whole event qualifying. Is that kind of what you said a few minutes ago?
It was a question I raised.
Oh,
I
okay.
didn't give you an answer.
Okay.
Now, what would be the difference if they actually paid for the event also?
Well, what if I were to say I was hosting theater at my farm and I sold you a ticket and I said $8 from each $10 ticket is for the food that I raised and $2 is to support the actors? Am I exempt as a theater facility that happens to be on a farm?
So these are that not so clear. These are what the municipality needs to help clarify. Does it, in your opinion, being zoning fellow, do we look at it a case-by-case basis, or do we stay ahead of and try to anticipate? I mean, how do you envision this?
Well, I'll skip ahead to next steps. I will say what's...
Well, I don't want to disrupt your discussion.
So, well, this is the last slide anyway.
Okay.
So I'm meeting with the Agency of Ag and then folks from Heinsberg and Shelburne Thursday to kind of discuss how we're all thinking about this law and where each community sees itself going. If I had to guess, I would say Shelburne is probably taking a more restrictive view of accessory businesses. Heinsberg might be more lenient in terms of thinking, what can fall into the accessory category. I would say officials within the town, whether it's the planning commission, select board, or whatever, need to consider whether to update site plan and performance review standards to regulate these businesses. If you don't think it's necessary, that's fine.
Now, in Shelburne and Heinsberg, they've already put in some zoning bylaws for agricultural businesses.
Right. Shelburne actually, before this law went into effect, I'm guessing 2 or 3 years ago, passed a set of zoning regulations for, I think they called them ancillary farm businesses. It was spurred in part because of Bread and Butter Farm, which was hosting these weekly burger nights. And they were starting to get traffic issues and parking issues. And perhaps one other farm that I'm forgetting. I think they had a movie night.
Fisher. It's the one on Spear Street.
Yeah. And the town was trying to say, okay, we want to support agricultural businesses. They're looking to branch out and do other business activities. You know, how do we make sure this is all done in an orderly fashion? And then I think officials in the town should consider whether they want to define what these appropriate accessory uses are or just defer to town staff. I'm not at a place today where I just want, without any input, to say, okay, anything can happen on a farm, as long as there's some food involved. I'd rather get input from people who are elected or appointed.
And
That's kind of where I am.
it'd be nice to have something in our zoning bylaws in the future to guide you on how to make this decision.
Right, and, you know, in the case of meals, for example, Panton Farm, the one whose menu I brought up, they do 1 to 2 meals a month. You know, is that an appropriate level of activity for sit-down meals? Could you have them, you know, once a day? Where does the town want to go with it?
Do you know if they're registered as a restaurant? Because in order to have the indoor seating and food, they'd have to be registered as a restaurant.
Sure, I don't know.
Not that I care if they are, but I'm just saying on a
No.
normal basis, a place that's gonna be serving food indoors has to have a restaurant license,
Right.
caterer's license.
I have eaten there. I would guess, based on my experience, they've probably not gone through all the regulatory channels that one would go through, the Department of Health.
If I was to do that at the store, it'd be hard I'd have to go through a lot more
You
regulation.
have to have a farm
I'd have to have a farm.
to go with it.
So you're opening up for comments and discussion now, or?
Yeah.
There's a microphone that passes around. It's not an amplification, but it gets it recorded on the VCAM. Do you know where to, oh, you've got it. Okay, go ahead, yes. Identify yourself.
Bud Schreiner, Charlotte resident. I'm a small organic vegetable grower, beekeeper. So my sense is the intention of this act was to create alternative accessory means of income to farms that are under pressure because of basically low milk prices and the challenges of farming in Vermont. So I think it's a great intention, and then the 50% products from the farm is to create a threshold, the other things being accessory. So I just wanted to clarify from you, where does the farm stays and events fit in relative to the 50% products produced?
That's not entirely clear to me. When you look at the law, it says that 2 different categories of accessory businesses can exist. One is less well-defined. It's the sale of, you know, this list of 5 different categories of products. The other is the events. And the events just have to feature the qualifying practices or products. And that piece of the legislation, in my read, doesn't have the 50% requirement. So, but you have to feature the practices or the products, you know, as part of an event. You can't just open up say a bed and breakfast, not serve any of your own products, or, you know.
Right.
Yeah.
My only concern is that the intention of the law is kind of being flipped on its head, and that people can do commercial operations and then kind of have enough window dressing to be called a farm, and I realize that we're not going to solve that tonight, so.
Right, yeah, and someone from South Central part of the state reached out to me because I know him and he knows that I've been working on this issue. And in his town, they basically have a hay farm that has turned into a wedding venue. Yeah.
And that was or wasn't, that was not allowed then? Or hasn't it been determined yet?
I think not yet determined.
Okay.
They've just started this summer hosting weddings.
Aaron, so you draw this distinction between, as you said, the events piece and the products that are sold, that are produced on the farm. So these businesses are called accessory businesses. So in the case of your friend there that had the hay farm that eventually became an events facility, then it seems that the farm is it seems that the farm becomes the accessory to
Right.
the events
Yeah.
facility.
Yeah, in that case, not knowing too much about it, it does seem like they're making hay to have a wedding facility.
Well, it all depend on the number of events too. 'Cause, I mean, if they only had 10 events a year, it wouldn't be overrun with the event compared to the on-farm use.
But it's income based, correct? That 50% is. I thought the events dollars.
Well, it's not clear to me whether the events piece is subject to that 50% requirement. Originally, the law had a third category specifically for weddings, and that got dropped after a number of towns raised concerns about that.
You mean included into events?
No, separate from events, so you could just host weddings on a farm and you're exempt.
Somewhere, one of these statutes they mentioned, I printed them all, and I'll be damned if I can find which one it is, says that these activities have to be subordinate to the farm.
Accessory to, yeah.
So, well, accessory to and subordinate to are different, I would think. I mean, you couldn't say that a wedding business is subordinate to a, well, I guess you could, depending on how much hay they produced. If they produced, hundreds of thousands of tons of hay, then the wedding business could be subordinate to the hay business.
They rented hay bales for seats.
So, I mean, I view the law is not more that just tries to make it easier for farms, but tries to keep the landscape close to looking like it does. I mean, if you look at it from the standpoint that is to keep farm-looking stuff the way it is, as opposed to turning into subdivisions, hotels, all that other stuff. If you're allowing the farm to do stuff, it still looks like a farm. Yes, it may increase traffic, there may be some other things, but it is indeed still a farm and not a strip mall with something else there. And another comment, when it comes to the value of products, I mean, what's the value of a carrot versus one that's now cleaned and packaged and one which is cleaned, packaged, and prepared? I mean, there's value added in there. So there's a very subjective point as to where do you say the value is. Is it in the bulk per pound price? Is it in the dressed, refrigerated, delivered? So I think value added, I think there's a number of subjective things, and my guess is they wanted it to be that way. So towns could kind of do it the way they want to.
The purpose statement is clear in the statute.
Mhm.
I mean, that's got to go by the language that's here, that we're evaluating something. It doesn't talk about scenic. It talks about
Well,
economic viability of Vermont farms. There's a 1 and a 2 here.
that's kind of what I meant. If they're not viable, they're going to become something
Well,
else.
I mean, your first statement about
Yeah.
it should to do with the landscaping and, which is a site plan issue, but the purpose of the statute is 1 and 2 here.
I guess I had a question, Aaron, about how municipalities would be, what lens municipalities are looking at evaluating accessory businesses. It sounded a lot like in this presentation that the way, as a zoning administrator, you're looking through local zoning bylaws at activities. Whereas a business, you could have one accessory business that operated all of these different activities that are often categorized differently in zoning bylaws. And then it would be a cumulative 50% of all of these different activities in one business, one accessory business, not 30 different programs are actually 30 separate businesses that each have to comply with a 50% bar.
Yeah.
Which is the presentation kind of seemed like for that event night.
Fayetteville Farm is actually a good example of that because they have the weekly dinners you can have a corporate retreat there where you have products grown at the farm. You can have a wedding there. You can go to see a surrealist ballet there.
And that's one accessory business, or that's four? That's the question, I guess
Yeah,
that's the question I'm asking.
I guess it's one. They're partly located in a town without zoning, so it's not an issue for them. But, yeah, an operation like that, I would say that they see themselves as just one thing, with multiple, business arms going on. But I can't speak for them.
And so that would be something, each town would be looking at how they define a business, or the state, I mean, I saw the definition of the state, 4 acres, based on how it files, or what was the third?
Or $2,000 in sales.
So that's a pretty low bar
Yeah.
to be considered a business.
Yeah.
So I see a lot of folks here in Fowler Ridge, and you guys are developing, and, you have plans. I mean, we're influenceable now because it hasn't been interpreted. Are there things that you've thought about, or how you've assessed the new law, and comments on how planning or select board ought to work into this to be, support your plans? Or there's a microphone.
Hi, I'm Grant McCargo. I'm Diana McCargo's brother and Peter's brother-in-law, here to represent Fowler Ridge today. So thanks for asking that question. It's one business for us. We're a farm. And as we shared with the Planning Commission, we use, for the livestock and the fruits and vegetables, the market is a way for us to create value off the products we grow. And we designed our strategy before Act 143 was law. We think it's a great gift to help make farms sustainable in the future by really looking at how you can create a viable business model. So we're excited that the town is looking at how to process this new regulation and how to regulate it. And we hope that it makes it even easier for other future farmers to really look at how they run their business, because it's tough being a farmer. And so our goal as we grow the herd size, which we're hoping to do a pretty substantial jump this year, as we grow our fruits and vegetables this year, that the market allows us to really, a way to monetize that and make it a viable business. So we're excited to see what you come up with on that, but we really continue to operate the way we envisioned before Act 143.
I mean, do you feel there's any constraints that should be considered by us? I mean, I've been at your facility a few times, and, large kitchen and barns, and, are there things that you're envisioning that would have us need to reevaluate or evaluate this 50% issue? I mean, are there events that you're going to want to consider that might take you over on the non-agricultural side of the 50%?
We are a farm, so our goal is just keep producing more and more and using the market to get that through there. So we are in the process of expanding our septic right now that will allow us for the Department of Health to allow us to sit in there. That's going to be a positive for us to encourage people to come in and grab food in the market and have a place to sit if they want to stay and eat something. We've already worked with the town on doing their first look at our numbers on how much we're growing, and every month we're getting better. Tad, what was the number for December? We were 75% of qualified products per the list there. January, even a little higher. When we look at our year-end goals, we're way above that number. So the more we can do as we grow the production to create that value-added product, I love the carrot analogy, because if we just sell the raw 1 carrot, that's tough. If we can actually put it into a salad and sell it for $8.50 a pound, that's much more attractive to us. And we look forward to selling other products. That's to make it as a farmer, is to really to push it up that value added chain.
So you're not, I was trying to lead you into, if in part of your plans are events, like some of these examples, restaurant, okay, and then weddings or other things that the regulation could be supportive or critique or shut off what you want to do. I mean, are there things like that that you're envisioning that you can still work within the regulation?
Yeah, I think we're fine with what's, like I said, it was great to see your presentation. Those are, when we do events right now, it's all about the farm. We had the grass-fed cattlemen's group there, and there was 20 people, and we fed them everything off the farm, and you paid for the event to come, and it was an all-day work session in the barn. So those are the kind of activities that we're focused on. We hope to do more educational things about agriculture going forward. That's a big part of the mission that Peter and Dinah are focused on. So as far as what we see the future is, it's right in line where we want to go with it.
Good.
I think there are some gray areas back to the having an annual audit would be great to us versus a monthly or quarterly audit, because our production goes way up in the summer and slows down. We're building a bigger root cellar so we can have more root products to carry us through the winter months. But coming up with policies around that just so we can plan, because that's a process to do that. Getting those kind of guidelines will be very helpful just from an operational standpoint.
Yeah, I would think it should be measured on an annual basis, not a month-to-month basis. It's a little hard to grow stuff right now. Or if a system goes down, septic system, it changes your revenue stream a bit. Okay. Other comments or?
Are farms exempt from taxes paying there? How does that work?
A farm of a certain size can qualify for current use, but it's not exempt from taxes. I mean, you don't pay sales tax on food products in
How about
Vermont.
rooms and meals?
Rooms and meals, I don't know. I don't know whether these farm stays include a rooms and meals tax or not. I would think the rooms portion would push it toward, yes, having to pay taxes.
Why do you ask?
Well, we want some business in Charlotte to help with our tax base. I wondered if,
All farms have taxes.
pardon me,
All farms pay taxes.
do they? Okay, I just didn't know if they were exempt to that too. I apologize, I just I've never thought
No,
about
but
it before.
sometimes there's an adjustment
Unless you're a nonprofit.
for ag use.
Excuse me, I'm confused. You're talking about income taxes or property taxes?
Property.
Well, it's
Oh,
different.
property?
Property.
Right, paying property taxes.
Oh,
Excuse me, income use.
Do farms pay a little less because they're farm or?
short use.
Yeah, it's in current use, their taxes are lower usually, but they're not, they still have taxes.
And that's not just available exclusively to farms. Lots of people can have current use on their properties that aren't registered as farms, have qualifying activities.
I think when you were talking about site plans, which the follow-up to that is the performance standards. So I think in terms of like Philo Ridge or anybody, you're gonna come up against the performance standards for parking, for noise.
Well, parking isn't part of the performance standards, but, I mean, there should be.
Traffic, yeah.
There's gonna be traffic, there's gonna be parking, there's gonna be signage, there's gonna be light, there's gonna be noise. I mean, there's a few things that, you know, the town may wanna try to look at. I mean, I'm not saying we'd have any say over it, but I mean, at least look at to see if it could be regulated at any point in time, or at least looked at in a site plan, so that, you know, a lot of times the neighbors don't know anything that's going on unless something is basically handed to them. And usually you get that through when you apply for site plan. That's the way they know. Other than that, I mean, I'm sure that people knew that Philo Ridge was doing something because they had bunch of construction there, extra new buildings going up and everything, so, but they didn't know what was going on just because they were driving by. So it would have been nice to at least had some kind of site plan, sketch plan review, something that would notify the neighbor that something was changing.
I think traffic is something that really needs to be looked at when you're, that'll be,
Traffic and noise, there's a point when you're starting something that it didn't seem to be a problem, then all of a sudden you get really popular and there's a line out the door for your product. There's
Oh.
nowhere to park and people park on the street. So I think we have to come up with I think that'll be hard. You don't want to start out making somebody have a gazillion parking spots when they're right off the bat. But there's some sort of,
There should be enough to accommodate what they want to do. And this is a change, because you have a change from being a farm, where most of the time, the only people on the farm are the farmers and his workers. Now you go into an accessory business, now you have public on your farm most of the time. So that it is a change that should be at least looked at.
So you're going to continue your education, meeting you said with the other towns. So then, are you going to come back with some recommendations, with either zoning or plan? I mean, how do you see us moving forward then, or Dean?
I mean, typically, the process of developing regulations starts with the planning commission.
Okay,
I think this happened because the select board wanted to be in the loop.
Yep.
But going forward, it would seem like it would go to the planning commission, they would hold a hearing, and then it would go to the select board. The select board would hold a hearing, actually 2 hearings, and actually, planning commission would hold 2 hearings, select board would hold 1 hearing, and then it would go to the town for a vote, if you want to proceed with
So
it.
this would be in the form of land use regulation adjustment to incorporate, amendments to incorporate Act 143.
If you want to proceed.
I think that's a little cart before the horse still. I'd like to keep a unified discussion and learn more about what the other towns are doing. Maybe get a little more feedback from a state level. I mean, to me, like you said, farms today in Charlotte, like the status quo currently is that these are not regulated practices, even though they are in some towns.
Across the state, they're exempt from zoning for the most part.
But Shelburne has put in some regulations before this act.
For
So
the side businesses.
Right, so
Yeah.
this town currently, before this act, did not feel the need for this. I think the creation of the act shouldn't be the promulgation of the process. I think we should see if there's a need before we direct the planning commission to start drafting what the specifics might be.
Right, but the thing is that before Act 143, it wasn't allowed. So now that it is allowed, now that Act 143 has made it possible, then I think we have to, in a way, have to play catch-up.
Right, and an example of that might be, prior to Act 143, a farm could have a farm cafe up to a certain square footage, but it had to go through conditional use review, which meant it would have gone through performance standard reviews. Now it's not clear whether that conditional use is just kind of nullified.
it seems like it says that you can't say no to but you can apply conditions for safety
site
and
plan
welfare is the word they
Performance
use.
standards.
Performance standards, so you can't say, no, you can't do this. I think it gives us the ability to say, okay, we know you can do it, but you gotta do the following. And there's some rules that say you can't make the regulations prohibitive. So I think as long as they're reasonable, the town can apply rules or regulations. to the businesses.
I think that's the structure, but what I'm talking about is the process. So like tonight was a informational presentation. I think the next step is to get a little more information about what other towns are doing, and for the select board to decide, is the question, answer to the question, yes or no, does the town want to add additional burdens to farm practices through these mechanisms or not? And that would be another discussion that the select board would facilitate
Clarifying
with people in
issues.
town to be able to weigh in on that discussion. Tonight was clearly an informational meeting. I think that the select board should allow the opportunity for the town to come and weigh in on whether we want the planning commission to start drafting these regulations.
Right, but the statute has put the burden on the town and on the zoning administrator to basically regulate this, to have the zoning administrator make a decision on whether it does conform to the state statute.
I didn't read it like that. It gave the option to the towns, whether they want to do that or not. There is an
further
option to not weigh in on it at all.
For the municipality to further interpret,
So I think it's up to the select board as kind of the governing body for the town to facilitate that discussion. And not, like Aaron said at one point in the meeting, he's looking for direction on this. He doesn't feel like he's in a position to actually make these decisions right now. Was that accurate?
Yeah, I don't want to just exempt anything that would come across my, counter.
So I think, this is a good informational meeting. I think we should have at least one more like this where it can actually be on the agenda as the point of the meeting and have those discussions.
With who? With the town?
Yeah.
My understanding, which is not particularly informed or deep, is that this Act 143 basically trumps any local zoning. So I don't think Shelburne's zoning regarding accessory uses are going to be enforceable. I mean, am I wrong? That's my understanding. And the purpose is to have a statewide permissive use. So at this point, site plan review and performance standards are just kind of just making it nice around the edge. And my major concern is that there are big loopholes, and it seems the next step is to get feedback back to state legislatures so they can kind of start to modify this. I mean, I don't really know all the processes, so.
Marty?
I haven't done a lot of homework on this, but I'm reading this pretty quickly. It's been a while. But this act is very simply written, which is nice. And the state legislators are trying to make a nice definition for accessory on-farm businesses, which we all recognize is going to help the viability of ag in Vermont and all that. So the purpose is perfect, and the devil is in the details, and we all have to decide what exactly defines exempt versus non-exempt. That's the big, where we need more information. And I think it is going to be about examples, because there's nothing better than a real-life, on-the-ground place that's doing it, where you can say, yeah, that's not so bad, or that's a conflict, or whatever. So, that's where we're on a learning curve. And that's where you're going to go chat with Heinsberg and Shelburne and Philo Ridge Farm and others who are in the fray and learn about, or try to come up with some words that are descriptive about what is an accessory use that is compatible in the area, which is effectively a rural district. And we have site plan review for home occupations. That's what we have on the books today. And it's probably going to be something quite similar to that for on-farm. They're just adding a few more uses that will be compatible with that area. Everybody wants to do that. They don't want conflicts, but we may have to refine that language. So on the page 3, D, where it says review permit, activities of an accessory on-farm business that are not exempt may be subject to site plan review, blah, blah, blah. You know, that's where, you know, we're gonna have to decide at what point there has to be a site plan review, which we do for our home occupations, but maybe it's slightly different for an ag thing, because it's all new to us. So I'm just blathering about it. You know, what we have to get, and I'm hoping that we'll get more information from other towns that can help us better describe and depict and be more explicit about what this is all about, and make sure that, you know, we may go through site plan review, or maybe a zoning administrator permit, simple, plain and simple. We don't know yet.
Well, the zoning permit won't happen because that's clearly exempt. It
Okay.
would be site plan or performance standards.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yes, Jerry.
On page 1 of question and answer, Act 143, accessory on-farm businesses, it says, what is site plan review? And it reads, site plan review is part of the local land use review permitting process. It provides an opportunity for the municipality to evaluate how the site will operate with public use, focusing on suitability access, internal circulation and parking for vehicles, landscaping and screening, exterior lighting, and sign design. The review may also include other matters as specified in the local land use bylaws, including performance standards. And I'd like to add light pollution to that list.
Well, lighting's in there.
I'd like to go back to procedurally. I'm not quite sure I followed you, Matt, in terms of what you were saying. So I think these are very helpful and very informative, but I think ultimately it does circle back to planning in terms of how we decide how to approach it, just as we would in terms of amendments to the town plan or amendments to land use regulations. That we would figure out what we wanted to do and then have hearings, and then they would go to the select board, and the select board would have 2 hearings, and it would go from there. We would go from there or stop from there. So I wasn't quite sure if what you were saying is that you feel the select board should make the recommendation in terms of how we regulate it, or I wasn't quite sure where you were going with that.
No, part of the reason that the select board took the mantle on organizing the discussions on Act 143 was there were conversations happening between Aaron and the Planning Commission, not at open public meetings, kind of working, daily working conversations. The public didn't have an opportunity to hear those discussions develop. Then select board members were having discussions with Aaron. Individual citizens were coming in for clarification, or emailing select board members, or having conversations. The goal of this process was to create one place where the town could start to facilitate a coordinated discussion on how we want to move forward before we got into the mechanics of how to move forward with zoning bylaw creation and modifications. So I think before we break out into multiple meetings and daily work developments, it would be good to have the opportunity for the public to come to another night of discussion about whether or not and what is the value and to what degree we want to see local zoning bylaws formulated by the Planning Commission. So that the Planning Commission has direction from the public feels like they have an opportunity to weigh in on the process, and that it's not a closed committee. It's also clearly an open process that's public, and then the work can start on formulating, which I think at this point we're pretty familiar with the process, the mechanics, and having those hearings. But I think it started out that there was a lot of kind of less than transparent work going on, which was all good work, but I think having a public discussion about about these issues would be a good thing to have here, so that the planning commission and the select board start the process where we end the process, which is back in public hearings together about bylaws.
It would be good to try to advertise it as best as we can, get a big turnout for the next.
That'd be good, yeah. We've certainly seen town hall packed on certain issues. I think we could do it again. Front porch forum and maybe a little pizzazz. Aaron, your presentation was fantastic, really polished.
Farm pictures, make themselves. Yes, I can. I'll double check some of the credits, but.
So that was good, Matt, good summary. Any other comments on this topic? Anything else anybody wants to say? So I assume you're looking, 30, 60 days from now, kind of, that Aaron will have a little more data for us and kind of do it again, I guess.
Maybe we could, in our notification, could prompt people as to what they need to think about before they show up.
Yeah.
Think about what things are trigger your concerns. Is it gonna be traffic? Is it gonna be noise, smells, light? I mean, that would help us get the public opinion as to whether or not we want to regulate and to what extent we want to start.
Yeah, and I think, how Gerald kind of wrote, what is site plan review? I'd say there could be a majority of the people in town who don't understand what the specifics are, and that we're really looking at these two issues of opportunity of site plan review and performance standard. We could maybe have another primer at the beginning of the next discussion meeting, defining those, and then, like you're saying, what different activities qualify in one of those two categories, and that's really what we're talking about with zoning bylaws.
Okay. Anything else? Thank you all. Thanks, Aaron. It was good. Good job.
It's not easy to make a engaging PowerPoint presentation.
Put some animals behind it, right?
Yeah, that's great.
We went to that restaurant in Fenton. I mean, it's kind of interesting. I mean, they don't have a restaurant license. I think they just have their products and serve them. It was about 10 courses. It was kind of interesting. A whole group of us went down there. Okay. Is it all right to be ahead of schedule, or is we going to have visitors for this?
I don't know whether the cemetery commission might come, so do you want to do minutes first, just to get?
Sure, why don't we do that? Plus, we'll give a break here for a couple minutes.
This is really hard to weigh in if you haven't done your homework and understand what they're talking about.
What, the Act 143? I know, I mean,
To come in and have an opinion, it's like, a lot of your opinions are thrown out by their act to start with, so you need to focus. It's kind of like affordable housing, on one hand, you want more of it, on the other hand, you keep regulating it, so it's harder to build a regular house.
I'm kind of surprised there wasn't more discussion. I mean, people seem to be okay.
Well, the state law, like Fritz said, the state law kind of takes all your discussion the wind right out of your sails when you're,
Oh, because they've opened it up and...
because it's so broad.
Well, I think it's, Vermont values its
Yeah.
roots, and if you don't make that easier to do than to turn it into something that's great.
It's true.
It's more profitable to develop the whole place. It is a state, but it's small.
Okay, so why don't we, since we're a little ahead of schedule, why don't we do the minutes of January 28th that are in your packet? Is there a motion to accept the minutes as may be modified for January 28th select board
That
meeting?
sounds like a darn good motion.
Okay.
I'll move that.
And I'll second it.
Thank you. I had one question on line 216. The cost of a special meeting for purposes of voting, I think, that's what costs $500. So I was going to add the word special meeting for purposes of voting. Costs $500.
Actually, I guess, not just that big a deal, but on line 220, the change is word of the transportation section, but then Charlotte today and Charlotte yesterday was the historical aspect.
So what do you want to change
I
there?
guess you could say Charlotte today and Charlotte yesterday.
Charlotte today and Charlotte yesterday?
Sure.
I think on line 190, towards the end of the sentence, it said it is regulated. I think it should be that it is not regulated by the Public Utility Service.
It is not regulated,
Yes.
right? That was a point that came out.
On 185, we can put some quotes around Marty's reply of no.
Oh, okay.
Well, is it not correct to say, I mean, it's under the purview of the Public Utility Commission? I mean, it's their jurisdiction, I guess. I think that's what she was intending to say, whether it's regulated or not regulated, it's,
I think the question was whether the law does not bind the utility.
yeah.
They operate on their own. They have guidelines from the Public Utility Service, but
Okay.
that was my specific question, did it include?
So what change are you suggesting here, or?
Just that it is not regulated.
Did anybody get back to you?
And that would be the Public Utility Commission, not Public Utility.
Oh, that's on
Service.
your 190, right?
Yeah.
I got that part.
Change service to commission, and Fritz is saying add not before regulated.
Right, I got that. What about 185? Do we want to change anything there?
I didn't,
You said quotes, but
I didn't have anything there.
I don't think that makes, because you put quotes around the no, I suppose.
No, I didn't say that.
Anything else? Do you have a copy of this, Lynn, that you're? I do.
Actually, I have a comment under 199 that I guess I should talk during Select Board updates. I've had Green Mountain Power reach out to me and say that they were offended because they never said that quote, so sue them. So I need to make it perfectly clear that anybody I talked to at Green Mountain Power never said, go ahead and sue us or sue me.
I recollect you saying it basically came down to,
Yeah,
and you
the
were,
net result was, but there was some lady went on the phone for a good 20 minutes about how they wanted a retraction and all this other stuff, so.
that'll be in this minute.
Did
this
you get
meeting's
what you
minutes.
wanted for your
No,
energy?
they're still not gonna pay me for it,
Now they're really not going to.
so.
Any other changes folks have? All in favor of the motion indicate by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Okay.
So yeah, it was the Public Service Board, and they've changed their name
Yeah.
to the Public Utility Commission.
Right.
Sounds like, I thought it was Public Service.
Well, we're on time, so
We did a site visit with them.
we're in the 8 o'clock item, bids for mowing, maintenance of cemeteries.
So I did, basically just, I checked with the commission members to see if they wanted any changes from last year's, and they said no, they thought it was fine. So I just, updated the dates, but basically the request for bids for mowing, maintenance of cemeteries is the same as last year without any changes.
Did you want to put the same wording in as you have in the other mowing maintenance? That says the contractor shall brush equipment prior to each mowing and reduce. I mean, I know there's no invasive vegetation there, but it may be on their equipment before they get there.
Okay.
Just a simple addition.
Okay. Where do you want to put that?
We can put it, all work shall comply with the following specifications. You can write under equipment, it doesn't say that, so.
Actually, yeah, I see that on page 2.
Was it?
The first, number 1, under mowing specifications.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, yeah, I didn't see it. I
I
skipped.
didn't either.
Okay, then we're all set.
So do you want us to have a motion on each? How many are there? There are 2 or 3? 2? So this one is the cemetery,
So,
and then the other one's just going to be mowing
so a motion
town land.
to approve the request for bids for mowing and maintenance of cemeteries as amended.
Second.
Okay.
Just some amendments as we look through it. It says in the middle of it, bids and contract, middle of page 1, bids and contract will be for the period of April 15 to December 31.
Yeah.
But then at the end of that sentence, 7 monthly invoices, April to October. So is it April to October, or should the?
Because it says in April to December, but there may not be any.
Yeah, and I thought all of our other mowing is October is the,
Yeah, I mean, usually there's not mowing after October, but, it's possible if there were to be a really warm fall, maybe there'd be some additional mowing, so.
I mean, to be consistent, just make it December.
either way, right.
I would say change the
Make the
October to
top
December.
October or make
There may
the
be no
bottom to
invoices.
December,
Yeah.
just so they
So-
can bill in December.
Okay, so it'd be 9 monthly invoices instead of,
Yes.
basically.
9 months.
The number 2 under equipment, I think it is a diameter of .065 inches.
Okay.
It's
For
in
the-
millimeters, isn't it?
Or is it in millimeters? I'm not sure what it is.
I think
Mine's
it-
mine's .095 at home, it's millimeters.
For your string trimmer?
Yeah, I think so.
It could be, it makes more
And
sense
this is
that
more
it's
delicate.
millimeters.
This is more,
Millimeter's like an eighth of an inch. If you got into 9/100ths of an
Oh.
inch of an inch,
Right,
it'd be like a
that's- you're
hair.
so
talking
that's
No,
inches.
fishing
It's
line.
gotta be
It's
inches.
inches.
Inch.
Okay,
That's
inches.
just what I look it up.
Yeah,
You're
it should be inches.
I know it's not meters. Okay.
You have a strike through on page 2, the number 6.
Yeah, I'm not sure what that is.
Okay, we're keeping it. Okay.
And that's just a little typo. So that's okay. Here comes the cemetery commission now.
And can we get consistent with word trim and weed whacking? We seem to go from one to the other. And
Which do you prefer?
and trimming specifications. Number 1 has the word trim and number 2 has the word weed whacking.
Vicky, we're going over the,
Do you have any changes you want? We're doing those.
I'd say trim,
okay.
being the trimming specifications, and then it doesn't limit them to one.
Type of machine.
Okay.
I was really hoping someday we'd get cheap in there, but that's another. They do great trimming.
Yeah, but we have to keep the predators out of the cemetery, right? So we need a better plans.
I get the term weed whacker twice on page 4.
We're just making editorial, nothing significant changes.
Number 3.
We have a motion to approve it, and we're just making
Discussion.
editorial corrections.
Number 3, under trimming specifications, we've kind of been trying to update our documents to make them gender neutral. So we could get rid of the his, her, and put in their, THEIR. Contractor and their employees will be expected to know the length.
Where did you find those things?
Number 3, under trimming specifications,
Okay.
on page 3.
Okay.
Did someone find another weed whack somewhere?
There were 2 on page 4.
Okay.
Where did, maybe
On page 4. Oh, okay.
there's one on that number 6 that's slashed.
Eric, you can maybe want us to go to options to get an electric weed trimmers?
Battery operated. I mean, it should be an option.
Yeah.
It should indicate where the contractor will be using
Preference
four-cycle
may be given to
or,
contractors using
battery operated.
four-cycle or
Trimmers.
battery-operated trimmers.
Want to do that, 4-cycle or battery operated?
Yeah,
Yeah. They're readily available, quieter, and
technology,
more environmentally
technology
friendly.
is a wonder.
So that's twice
Really
in there
is.
on page 4.
Yep.
And all of these have to be mailed in, it looks like, not hand delivered.
Right. Yep,
Mm.
because it's sealed bid. Oh, no, it could be hand delivered.
It doesn't give that option.
Oh.
Other bids have. That's why I'm
Yeah.
asking if that was a change
Right,
or.
it can't be emailed in, but it can be handed in.
You have 2 dates there too, the March 21st or March 25th. Do we want to pick one?
So that issue was,
Thursday, and
question-
then it can be discussed.
right, the question is whether according to the purchasing policy, it's supposed to be submitted to the select board, in which case it would be at the meeting on the 25th, or you can designate the submission, you can have the submission to a designee, in which case you could have it submitted to me by the 21st, and then I would collate them and, organize the
There's always been an interest by reading them at the meetings, though. I mean,
Yeah?
so make them do the 21st and they'll be opened.
Well, if they're due the 21st, then you have to have a meeting on the 21st.
Oh, then you have to open them at the same time?
You? They could just sit.
Oh, they
seal
could sit,
until the meeting.
yeah, so then why not have them due on the 25th?
Give people a little more time.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
Do
do
you
on the
guys like to
25th.
open them at, I mean, everybody's,
And I was thinking this type of format, so be delivered to Charlotte Town Office, PO Box, or hand delivered to
Yep.
Dean Block.
yeah, that's
So
good.
something like this, Dean.
Okay, great. Yeah,
Would work.
okay, sure.
Awesome.
Wow. Anything else? What did we just say, the 25th?
25th?
Okay. Anybody else have anything? Nope. All in favor of the motion indicate by saying aye. Aye. Okay. Next is the mowing of inland maintenance, brush hogging town lands. Is there a motion to approve the request for bids as may be modified? Mowing of town lands?
I'll make a motion to approve the request for bids for mowing and land maintenance
Second?
as may be modified.
Second.
So same issue there as far as the 21st or 25th, if you want it, that, you know, to be the 25th. And delivery, same with hand delivery too.
Were the horseshoe pits removed?
At the beach?
Yeah, I think they were.
I don't know.
Or maybe there's just two
And-
left?
They're to the left of the playground, right? In there, is that where they were?
Yeah, I think they reduced the number if they didn't remove them
They're
all.
still there? Or they were removed? Some, because there used to be like
Playground.
play area. I guess if they're not there, then it'll be easy to clean out and rake them.
Can we go through this one and put, are we gonna try to do trimming instead of weed whacking
Sure.
through the, wherever it may be? Now, are all these separate? I mean, they're numbered 1, 2, 3, 4.
That's a good question. So do they get quoted separately, or we quote them as,
They do break it out, that's how we've asked for it in the past. That's, you know, at the bottom of page 4, it says bids shall be submitted as follows, separate quotes for items, actually it should be 1 through 6.
Yeah.
1 through 5, right?
Well, it should be 6, because there's the mulching of trees.
Oh, okay. Trees to be mulched, so that'll be 6, huh?
Yeah.
And down in the bids shall be submitted as follows. Bid should indicate whether the contractor will be using
Okay, electric.
electric or four-cycle trimmers.
Trimmers, yeah.
And I would say the preference to be given to you could say the preference be given to contractors using electric, I suppose, if
Okay.
they wanted to.
Was that your intent also under the cemetery, to prefer electric? Is that,
We put that in there.
Okay, I
We didn't
was,
say prefer that, I mean,
No,
that puts a burden on the,
It says in there already that it prefers 4-cycle
right,
versus 2-cycle. So I would think it would prefer 4-cycle and electric over 2-cycle.
right. 2 cycles too powerful.
well, they're
Loud
loud.
and polluting, because it's burning oil with the fuel.
I mean, we have this
But they're
contractor
lighter
shall
weight.
brush equipment prior to each
They're lighter
mowing.
weight.
Yeah,
We've got it, I
and
mean,
a little more
it should be
efficient.
only like once in each heading.
yeah,
The number, you have it at the beginning and then you have it in each one
oh,
of the
really?
numbers.
Yeah, it looked like they were for,
Yeah, but this first one is just above anything.
oh, it's a blanket.
It's a blanket one, and then they've got one in each, and I agree, having it in each one.
Okay.
If they get separated.
Right.
Get rid of the
It's a different-
first one?
I'd just get rid of the first one there and keep it in all the rest of them.
This new one for sports court on the bottom of page 1, leaves will be blown from the courts as needed in the summer, weekly in the fall.
Yeah,
Is that something the rec commission requested?
they did, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it'll be, I guess, a beta test how that goes. I don't envision someone from the rec commission asking for daily leaf blowing, but,
In the fall, or weekly?
well, it says as needed, so that's
Oh.
a kind of a subjective.
Oh, right, as needed in the summer. Yeah,
It seems like management-wise, that's fine, but I just
Right.
want to keep my eye on that.
while they're mowing, you know, I'd say while they're doing their mowing, they would do it at that time.
Yeah.
And maybe that's the way it could be worded.
That would, I think, probably be a little more reassuring.
Okay.
As far as,
Expense,
yeah, and not being able to calculate it.
okay.
A little more predictable, I guess.
So we have an attached mulching schedule, should that be, is that referenced in the request for bids? It says 14 trees to be mulched.
It is definitely in 2, it's there, specification below, and tree mulching schedule attached. In 3, it's there in blue,
Okay,
under the spring cleanup section.
so then this becomes attached to, this is from the tree warden, maybe?
The deputy tree warden.
Deputy tree warden? Are the numbers consistent?
They should be.
Where did you see the tree mulching? I know it's
It's
under
this
number
sheet.
6, but I mean, on the,
Oh, I saw 14 trees to be mulched under 1,
so that's at the town beach.
so that's the town beach. So if I look at town beach, 9, 10, it's 14, isn't that good?
Right, but does mulching, is the mulching gonna be could it be a separate bid? And if it is, it wouldn't be in the,
Right. It could be, because under 6, that already broke out some trees, but with the way this is organized currently is trees that are in the areas that we're mowing, such as the town beach or the village, I left the trees in that section,
right.
but then there are some trees that are not in areas where we're mowing. So that's what I put in number 6, but it could be all trees, could be in number 6, if you
Oh, I
want to
got you.
completely break that
So you
out.
listed the trees that aren't listed in the other
See,
section.
the numbers correlate here to here.
Right. Gotcha.
But I don't think you want a separate bid for this.
For the mulching?
I don't, I would think that you'd want it part of the package. The guy's got his equipment there.
Well, if we do it as a single bid, but if things start getting broken up, then,
You have to
And-
mulch every year.
No, some of them are off this year.
Wood chips, they don't disappear that fast. But we have asked for some new mulching, like the trees along Thompson's Point Road down by Thompson's Point. we've asked for mowing and brush hogging around those trees, and it would protect the trees to have some wood chips so the trimmer isn't too close to the trunk. And it keeps the grass down. It just works really well, pretty economical.
I think the advantage to having it in the mowing contract is the mower's there on site and able to see whether the mulch needs to be, redone or spruced up.
He ran his mower through my mulch, it's not my
Yeah, no,
fault.
it avoids conflict, that's what I was thinking.
Yeah. So our hope is that a single contractor will bid on the
Whole thing.
whole thing. Okay.
Any other things that we have?
Ashwood chips at some point?
Everybody been through this?
Biofuel.
You ready? Okay, all in favor of the motion?
I think, yeah.
You ready?
Yeah, and I was just gonna mention that, like I said before in the other one, just to make sure that the weed whack gets changed to trimmed wherever it is in this document.
Okay,
Yep.
trim versus, yep. Okay. All in
So-
favor of the motion indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Okay. And then the last one is brush hogging.
Right. So there are some edits already, but one of the questions I think has been raised is whether, because of the wild parsnip, whether everything needs to be done twice. And then also regarding Thompson's Point, I think I forwarded an email, Steve Denton would like to be released from the lease, but there were 2 other bidders 2 years ago, so we could rebid that and see if anyone is interested in leasing it. If they're not, then we would have to brush hog it, probably.
So that would be my recommendation, go out and rebid it, therefore we would receive some money rather than pay money to have it done. So, everybody on board with that? Go out for rebids? Does Denton indebt it to us for,
I think he missed his last lease payment, he said he would pay that, and
Okay.
then, I guess, if maybe have a motion to release the lease and rebid it.
do you want a motion for that, you said?
Yeah,
How do you identify the property?
on Thompson's Point.
Lanes Lane?
No, it's, there's, yeah,
What's it called?
I was gonna say Thompson's Point's ag land.
Okay,
Thompson's Point Ag Lease.
yep.
Make a motion to release the current leasee from the lease on the Thompson's Point Ag land for the town of Charlotte, and authorize the town administrator to put out a request for bids.
2-year cycle or a 3-year cycle, what would the,
So that's 5 years.
5-year cycle?
Yeah, yeah.
It's the same as up there.
Okay,
Second.
second. Any further discussion on that? Yes.
I just got a question about the Thompson's Point part of it. It seems like there's miscommunication between whoever's doing the brush hogging and who's doing the field. I mean, like this past year, Adam did the brush hogging and he brush hogged along the trees that Sue was talking about. He made a pass along the side of the trees, and then Steve or whoever comes in to do the field, they skip a section, even though he'd already brush hogged 6 feet from the trees, and it's not mowed. So then it's left there, and some of it, I guess maybe it's just because Steve is getting out. Some of that down there wasn't even cut last year. It was actually just cut last month in January. So I just think that somebody needs to make the communication between the two, the leasee of the land and the person doing the brush hogging. So all of it gets cut. I mean, as you go in, the beginning of Lane's Lane hasn't been cut for years. And the little part
Yeah.
between the ditch and Lane's Lane. and then along Lane's Lane going down where the camps are, there's a strip where brush and trees were growing up that we actually cut down when we had that mower rented. But anyway, I just think it should be,
Do you mean right along the road or into the field? Or I mean, do you,
so it's like we as the town mow a section.
yeah,
And then there's a section that doesn't get mowed.
right.
And then whoever's cutting the field
No, I
cuts the
get
field.
that. No, I get that. I mean, on Lane's Lane, because that's,
All over down
This is
there.
why I said we needed a site visit, a walkthrough, whether it's winter or not.
I mean, I just think it would
We
make
need to look
Thompson's
at it
point,
as-
we receive a lot of revenue from down there, and just because of the campers, I mean, so people can see the fields, I mean, even the little section on Deer Point, where they probably stay 30 feet from Deer Point, doesn't get mowed, and it's all growing up to brush, so, I mean, if it's,
Maybe a map go with this, to try to figure,
well, just so, I
show
mean,
them
I'm
where.
sure Adam, if Adam were to do it, that he would brush out that if he knew that that needed to be brush out. I just think there's a miscommunication on how much one is supposed to do or the other, and when the farmer doesn't cut it until late, and Adam's already been there, then it doesn't get cut.
so then that would
There's a
be,
few more areas down there that,
It's all of the ag
Need to be
fields, all of
addressed.
the ag fields need to be addressed.
right,
so it's really a question of who cuts first, but it seems like it's usually the brush hogger cuts first and the mower cuts second. Is that,
Well,
I mean, you would think it would be the
it
opposite.
should be the opposite if they want to get any
Good
quality of
hay,
hay,
yeah,
but
yeah.
I think it depends on who
Who's cutting,
does it.
okay.
And I mean, Steve had it, he's busy, so he doesn't get around to probably doing it as soon as he'd probably like to, and maybe that's part of the reason why he's getting out. I just like to have you guys just see if you can't get it to look a little better and get the two of them together. you
well,
know.
maybe when, they go to do a field visit, the contractors, we could go then, or maybe you could,
Yeah, or maybe the brush hogger could talk to whoever's doing the mowing and say, hey, how close are you gonna get, or do I need to mow around all of the fields, or?
So why don't we proceed with the last motion, for getting someone to do the fields, and then proceed with this, and then we communicate once we know who the players are, and make sure it's all done.
right, because the hedgerows coming.
So, I mean, I do think that's one issue, but the second issue is Lane's Lane. That hasn't been done in years, and, yeah, I guess what was pointed out to me, actually, maybe Matt, you might have been the one who pointed out that a lot of the wild parsnip that comes in is coming in on mowers or brush hogs. So Lane's Lane does not have any wild parsnip at all. And I'm kind of, that's for the past couple of years. Adam was happy to brush hog it, but I held him off because I was concerned about wild parsnip coming in.
Well, I mean, the park has been vigilant about making sure that contractors do brush off
Yeah.
their equipment before they bring it, but we have to select people who are
Vigilant.
willing to do that
Yeah.
extra work.
Well, there shouldn't have been any out on Plouffe Lane, in my opinion, and it's filled with. There's a lot of wild parsnip over on Plouffe Lane trails. Mhm.
They should really brush them off before and after, so if there were some seeds picked up there, they're not gonna bring them to another site. It's just,
It really is easier than it seems because
Yeah, it
most contractors now have leaf blowers that have 200-mile-an-hour wind, and they're not hand brushing their equipment.
it's true.
So it shouldn't take that long to do it well. Yeah.
You have a
And it's
note,
just gonna go somewhere.
you have a note on top of page 2, Dean. Do we want this done a second time?
Yeah, that
Okay.
was raised by the brush hogging contractor last year, or actually, I guess it was, yeah, it was. Adam commented that it seemed like it needed a second time.
So we'll say twice during the season.
Okay.
Yeah, I think that's good. The best way to control weeds is to keep them mowed.
Yeah.
So I get rid of my parsnip, I just included it as part of my lawn, I mow it once a week. It doesn't come back.
Yeah.
So we're changing weed whacker to trimmer. There's a couple of
Tough
places
on the
here.
mower, but
So you'll do some coordination, Dean, once we get selected candidates, I guess. I don't think we ever made a motion on this one. Somebody want to make a motion? This is the brush hogging?
make a motion to approve the request for bids for brush hogging town lands.
Second. We'll do the same with hand deliver.
Yep, and on the 25th, or hand deliver.
And you do want, well, this one does say mail or deliver to, but you, okay, that doesn't give the address, so I guess.
This says.
Oh, I see, yeah. This is the one.
Okay. Is that all right, the way it's,
We could just standardize it.
yeah.
Yeah, just standardize it.
Do you like that style, mail or deliver, and then add the address? Is that, or do you like the two different,
I think the two, yeah.
like the
two's
two
nice
options?
to
Okay.
see.
Any other comments? All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye? Okay, what's next?
8:30.
Oh, Point Bay Marina, do we have to become the liquor license?
Yes.
Somebody want to make a motion to make us the liquor board?
Make a motion to convene as the Shalott Liquor Control Board.
Okay, is that seconded?
Second.
Okay. So this has, these last one had everybody sign it, yep. So, you want to make a motion to approve the second-class liquor license?
So make a motion to approve the second-class liquor license
Point Bay Marina?
for Point Bay Marina for May 1st, 2019 to April 30th, 2020.
Second.
Second? It's pretty straightforward, no changes to the format. Oh, they have the owners of the Point Bay, I didn't realize that. Huh. Huh. Okay, any questions? All in favor of the motion, say aye. Aye. So we should all sign it?
Make a motion to reconvene as the select board.
Hmm. There you go.
We have a
Motion.
motion and second to reconvene.
Okay, sorry, you're right. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. You have a Thompson's Point lease nearby? Just waiting up, Dean, do you want to hand it?
I do have it, it needs to be notarized, so you want to hold on to
Oh,
it?
just one person signs
Yeah,
it,
one
the
person.
chair?
Yep.
Carrie, are you still a notary?
I am.
Do you have your stamp?
No,
Ah.
that stays at the start.
I can come in tomorrow if you want. So is there a, that might be a pencil, you might want a pen. Is the motion to approve the lease for Lot 18 on, do we do two motions to terminate and to,
Sure.
so we're looking for motions in accordance with the agenda?
Motion to terminate the lease, Thompson's Point, Lot 18, 2657 Thompson's Point Road, to Annie P. Hurlbert.
Is that seconded?
Second.
So this is routine, a sale of a property?
Yeah, it's a mother deceased passing it on to the children.
Okay. Any comment, oh, and authorize the chair to sign?
definitely.
Okay. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Is there a motion to create a new lease?
I'll make a motion to create a new lease for Lot 18, 2657 Thompson's Point Road, to John C. Paul and Robert E. Paul.
Second.
I guess
Okay.
I should say the new lease.
So it's valid for the 38, so that's 20 years, huh?
Yep.
That's the standard these days?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
And to be signed by the chair.
Sign by the chair. Any questions on this? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Okay.
I don't know how to proceed.
You signed the approved side?
Well, I will in a second, but there's supposed to be 2 checks cut, one to the town and one to the Department of Liquor Control, and there's only one check present, and it's the one to the state, not the town. Do they deliver the other one to Mary?
Yeah, that probably is the case.
Okay.
Yeah.
Good catch.
There is, so we already have it, because that has to be sent to the state.
Directly.
So the 835 item is prepare for town meeting presentations. So I saw some emails saying, is it Article 3? Is everybody going to do it during Article 3?
So the three four including Select Board, but aside from Select Board, the tree warden would like to give a 15-minute or so presentation. I think the library board would, and I believe CVFRS does, at least my understanding is.
Yes, they're planning to.
So you got the library, they say yes.
Yep.
Fire and rescue. So we're going to do this under Article 3?
Yeah, so Article 3 is the budget, and they are all budget related. So that seemed to be the appropriate place.
Then you have to pull down the the screen one time.
Right.
Okay. And then my thought was to just talk about the pluses, just stand up without a presentation, the pluses and minuses to the budget. I think it's in your packet.
It might not be in the packet. I think I just sent that to you.
You just gave it to me?
I can send it to everybody.
It's,
Should.
everybody hasn't seen this yet?
We're talking monetary pluses and minuses?
Yeah. Well, there's a correction in the book, which I would announce on the, I think it's on page 14, that Mary and Dean have been talking about. So I would kind of verbalize, make a pen and ink change to the book, so if they have them with them. Doesn't change the bottom line, everything's correct otherwise. And then we had about 6 items of increases, legal work. Remember, we're doing the 2 bonds, health insurance, what it costs. We agreed to the Emerald Ash Board to put 20,000 in. Put it under the highway budget. Library bond servicing is 21,000, that's an increase. The fence, 10,000 we added. Recreation fund, we increased from 25,500 to 30,000. And then, should I say that publicly that we received a $40,000 donation from the Tiller Foundation? I mean, it's been public about it, I guess. Okay.
People will clap.
Okay, that would be good. I'll make a little space in there. And then we increased the reserve fund and fire and rescue from 80,000 to 100,000. We've added 20,000 there. So I'm just going to say those things. Decreased was the equipment for the town hall because we purchased a server. The insurance went down. And then the fire and rescue budget went down. Then talk about the total expenses, dollars raised for taxes, and then the impact on the tax rate which is 1.6% as we know it now. So that, I would just stand up and say those slowly, and I know where they are on our pages, and I can take people to them if they need to get there. All right?
And would you email?
Yeah, that outline to everybody.
Thank you.
So everybody should have a copy of that, so,
Just be prepared for
yeah,
town meeting.
you've
questions and
transferred
answers.
into let's say it's a $100,000 house, you know, what's the impact, and you've been on your feet on that, and you've answered that question in the past.
Seems like a good metric.
Okay. Anything else on that topic? Select board updates. Aaron just wanted to make sure we all knew that Reset Properties, you know where the old Garden Way is down that area, the gentleman put his lights in. Remember, we had a court order to remove the lights?
Which an electrician
Yeah,
did.
Steve Spettazzini went down there in accordance with a court order. The lights have been reinstalled with an additional light. So a letter went out Friday in accordance with the zoning board's, you know, doing his job. So we haven't had any feedback, have we?
Not since Friday, no.
So he's in violation of the court order.
Yep.
Reset Properties.
Is that something
Calvin.
that the court now takes procedural control over, or it's still in the zoning administrator's?
I think it's still the zoning administrator, finds Ken Crew. So I'm not, I think at some point we could put a lien on the property for the fines. So that would probably be the next step. But Aaron,
Would you say the next step would be?
I believe it would be putting a lien on the property for the fines.
Oh,
Would that include the lawyer's fees for putting a lien on the property?
did we fine him before? Or was this a cooperative agreement that he complied eventually?
I believe it was just an order. It wasn't actually, but I think actually the fines can accrue back to the original violation, which actually was several years ago.
I thought the violation now isn't of town
no,
bylaws,
it's
it's
the
of the
court.
state's court
Right,
order.
yeah.
So the state doesn't have a procedure for that?
I'm not,
Contempt of court.
yeah, contempt of court, yeah. I'm not,
Is that something we could check
Find out
with
more
legal
about?
about to see
Sure.
if
yeah,
we should be reporting to the courts?
okay.
So I think the letter just said you're in violation.
He did get the attorney's review, basically the attorney wrote the letter.
But even if you put a fine and an amount in,
Right.
that would probably stimulate a little more interest.
Okay.
Or being arrested, contempt of court.
Right, but I agree with Matt. It should have been this violation paper should have been sent to the courts
Okay.
so that they could act upon it.
Because it's not a new bylaw that's been broken, it's the state's court order that's being ignored.
Right. That's what I think.
Can we get the Affordable Housing Fund on an agenda sometime fairly soon to start talking about that? We said we would. When we
Before
took
town meeting?
that. No, not necessarily. Well, we said we thanked them and took their recommendations. Now we need to
The steering committee.
really understand those, what they were.
I agree. It's something that should be moved forward with.
I'm actually sorry that I didn't think of it a couple months ago. I would have asked for it to be on agenda before town meeting. So I think you should tell people that we are planning on working on that,
Affordable housing.
if you would, thank you.
So what would you want to have on the agenda, specifically, like to review the current?
To review the current and to review what the
The
committee
recommendation?
had recommended, and I think it's gonna take a couple of meetings at least. My concern was that they had 5, 7, 10 meetings. We haven't had any on understanding
Right,
as
but
a
this is
group.
But again, this is just a grant policy. There are opportunities in town to do affordable housing if people so choose.
Right. Yes, I understand that.
You-
But we want to understand the grant program and how it would,
I agree.
how it would work.
So you want that, there wasn't really a committee, but that group, people to come back to the meeting or not?
Not necessarily,
No,
I
okay.
mean, I certainly welcome them to be here, but
Okay, just let them
it's
know.
really our opportunity to
Well, review.
Talk about it.
Review and move forward.
review it and move forward. Very good. I'll take that.
Is there any other business to be brought forward?
I just want to let folks know if you want to attend, but you don't have to. There's a site visit for the cemetery fence tomorrow at 2 o'clock for contractors. And then Fritz and I are meeting with a contractor for the generators on Thursday.
So the senior center is going to be closed Friday. They're going to install the senior center generator the Friday the 15th.
Right. And then,
Probably not hook up the propane, but they'll, because they need to bury that. I don't know if they're gonna try to,
They're going to shut down the power and everything to the,
well, they need to do that to install the transfer switch.
okay.
But if the generator's not operational, it won't affect it. They just have to
Oh, I see. You're gonna,
interrupt the wiring to,
so the generator doesn't sit on a cement pad?
I think it sits on a gravel pad.
Okay. Is that with or without snow there? Could be a little snowy.
Could be.
A little messy.
and then.
May have a
town
weather
hall-
delay.
Town hall is scheduled for March 5th, town meeting day. So we're closed anyway.
Okay.
They could still do what they need to when they shut down the buildings, but do that amount of wiring without, it's just the install the transfer switch.
Yeah, the final hookup is where they're gonna, where the power has to be shut off or, it shouldn't take that long.
So it's going to be installed, but won't be operational.
I don't know, I haven't talked to him, I'll talk to him when we meet with him, if he's gonna plan
Are they
on.
going to bury the, is that what you're saying?
Yes.
Bury the propane tanks? Or
So,
tank?
They could bury it, I mean, jackhammer it or frozen ground, I mean, you can make a hole in it.
Well, you don't have to do that now.
No, they could probably, they'll probably wait till spring.
Yeah. We already have propane over there for the
Yeah,
stove.
that's a smaller tank though.
So there'd be separate tanks? Okay. Anything else to bring up? Is there a motion? To adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Okay, all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Don't forget to sign the warrants.